I came to Carroll County in 1938. My dad was a horseman, so we ended up in Carroll County, a nice rural county. And I've lived here ever since. Actually, when we came here, we moved onto a farm. I believe it was 130 acres, farmland. So I had to do a lot of chores, even though I was small. Back in our day, we didn't have running water everywhere. Electricity wasn't everywhere, so it was rural, but we didn't know any better. As a kid, I didn't know any better.
Mm-hmm. And what part of Carroll County was it that you moved to?
Toward, up above Tawnytown, toward Middleburg, out Krause's Mill Road, Krause with a C.
And how did your family come to be there?
I don't know how my father found that. Evidently, he went through real estate, but he was raised on a very large farm in Purcellville, VA, with his dad, and then he got interested in horses. He attended VPI for a short while, and he got interested in horses and took him from New York to Florida and all over, so we moved around. I have 2 older sisters and 1 younger brother. Why he landed here, I presume, through the realtor. He must have had contact with a realtor.
So when you say he was interested in horses, what kind of work exactly was that?
Okay, that was race horses, but he did mostly steeplechase. But he's done a little bit of everything, and a trainer and all. And then when you get a little age on you, you decide that's not for you. So then he went into farming because he knew all about farming because he was raised on a farm.
I see.
And dairy farm. That's what we ended up.
That's what you had?
Yes, dairy
And
farm.
so what was a typical day for you like when you were a kid on the farm?
Okay, carrying water for the chickens, the pigs, helping carry the milk, which when you milk then, you milk by hand. And you had a spring house which had flowing water through it. And you took your milk cans in a little cart and you carried the milk back and forth till you put it in the cold water. You didn't have refrigeration like we do today. And helped my father with cleaning this cow barn and all that. Had many little chores. We had a lot of chickens and just many chores in a day. And as I got older, I inherited many bigger jobs, like helping go to the hay field and we filled sallow and, well, just various things. Of course, back in those days, you cut wood for the wood stove in the winter, and we had a mill that wasn't very far from us, and we'd get the big trees, have those sawed, so we could saw them down into our own pieces to fit in the wood stove. So, and we had a different, well, actually, there wasn't much time for entertainment, but we had a long lane that was at least a mile long. And it seemed like we had a lot deeper snows then, quite deep. So my dad would take us out to the school bus, and we'd have a horse and buggy because it was so deep. And my sisters and I would pile in it. And the older sister would say, "Get off my dress, you're wrinkling my dress," because back then you starched clothes. And we had perfect attendance. I don't think any of us children really missed any school, really. We went.
Was the horse and carriage how you got to school?
We met the bus, which is
see.
at the end of a good mile. Maybe it was over a mile. Of course, they were all dirt roads then, and you didn't have the county plowing your roads. So Daddy had made a old-time clearing out of rough wood to take, the horse would pull it, and that's how you push your snow out of the lane, so it would help.
Oh, no, it's like a little plow.
Yeah, and then it was smooth like a sled, made out of this real heavy old wood in rough form, and that's how we'd open up the lanes.
Oh, that's neat.
But I'd say...
What were the activities that you had for fun?
Very scarce because you were so tired after doing your work and maybe had homework that we did have a nice piano. My mother was very talented with playing the piano. She played by ear, but she also could read music, and it was a player piano. So we'd get around that, and we as children couldn't bang on the keys. Absolutely not. That would mess it up. But we did. We had some neighbors, and of course back then they were across the fields. So they didn't come that often, but we'd sit down and sing. We'd play Chinese checkers, and just not a whole lot of, well, I'm thinking we put puzzles together, various things like that. We had a busy schedule, but yet we did more work than anything.
Right.
And I had little books like Bobbsey Twins and all that, which I'm sure people don't know about today, but my dad was very gung-ho on making sure we read and got informed.
And what about school? Was it a small?
It was Tawnytown High School,
Mm-hmm.
which I guess in comparison today it was small, but yes, it was. In fact, they've torn that down for some unknown reason. It was all brick, quite a large school, but in our day it was.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't commence to tell you how many children went there.
Mm-hmm.
But
Now, you said that you came to Carroll County when you were 4, but you were born in Baltimore, I think.
we were traveling through because, excuse me, Horseman were all over the place for the races and all because he raced at Pimlico and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I was born in Franklin Square.
Mm.
And my mother had some problems with delivery, and the instruments had hit my upper lip, and I had a tumor, and I had to have radiation back in those days for a whole year.
Wow.
I don't know how the procedures were then.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, my voice.
Was there a hospital out here?
No, not in Carroll County. No,
Mm-hmm.
my goodness, I don't know when that came. That was a big surprise. That's a big change to Carroll County. Whenever I can't remember the years.
So, what was the medical care like?
You know, I don't know. I didn't ask him other than my dad said he was glad he won a lot of races because you didn't have insurance back then. If you did, I guess only the well-to-do.
Mm-hmm.
But he said the horses helped pay for my medical care.
Oh, good.
So I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry I didn't ask at the,
Where did you go to church?
We went to church. We did go regular, but I know my sisters would go to Sunday school at the end of the, it was a little country Sunday school called Hobson Grove.
Mm-hmm.
And I went a little, my brother wasn't born until 1940, so we would go, but because of the farm work, we didn't go as regular as we should have.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And so when you grew up and you stayed in the county, where did you live then?
Okay, we lived on a farm, another farm. We moved from way back in the country, but this farm was a little bit bigger, had more conveniences by far.
Mm-hmm.
And so my mom and dad, well, actually, I'm trying to think how many cows we milked, but I had to milk so many cows in the morning and so many in the evening before I went to school.
Mm-hmm.
And grew up actually along Route 140, a farm. And then to change my pace of life when I turned almost 16, there was a dairy farm called Willa Farms Dairy in Frizzlesburg,
Mm-hmm.
and they needed car hops. But back in those days, you were limited at that age how many hours you put in. So I applied to the Warners, which were wonderful folks in Frizzlesburg. The farmers would have their milk delivered there, so it was a dairy. But then they'd have this little fountain out front, which the teenagers just loved, and the boys had their cars. They could pull up to curb service.
Mm-hmm.
And we were instructed very nicely. You don't hang around the cars. You deliver what they've ordered on a tray
Mm-hmm.
and get on your way. Well, that's where I met my husband,
Oh.
at the dairy barn in Frizzlesburg.
Mm-hmm.
And so it could only work on weekends then, and Sundays where you go in at noon and you get off at midnight. And I had a dear friend that went to school with me. Her father would come down from Tawnytown and he'd take me home and drop me off at the farm because he would go right past the house. So my dad would be able to continue the farm work, and then I'd have a ride home.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that for a couple of years, but naturally at that young age you couldn't be full-time.
Right.
But we served Sundays and good old thick milkshakes and sandwiches and all, and you'd serve them on a tray. You'd hook it right on the car, and that's
And they would eat in the car?
And then when they were ready, if it was nighttime, they'd pull their lights off and on to blink, just that come get my
Come
tray.
get the tray.
Or
Mhm.
otherwise you just watch, or they toot their horn, come get the tray.
Did they play music outside?
Yes, well, they had a jukebox which you could hear.
Uh-huh.
It was on, yes. And back then, of course, the kids, Nickelodeon, I guess you'd say, really enjoyed that. Yeah, it was a
That's
very,
neat.
very nice place for the teenage to gather, but I was a country girl, so that was a big break for me,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, did you take up your father's interest of horses?
Well, I'll tell you what, we had riding horses, which my dad thought we should have a riding horse. And we had two that my older sisters, he'd put them out in the field and they'd race, see which one would win.
Mm-hmm.
But we always kept one. Of course, they moved on and got married long before I did, and my brother. And I'd go horseback riding when I had time on Sunday with a little lady that was a farm out Trevanian Road, we'd ride up to Tawnytown on the back roads with our horses. And that was our entertainment on Sunday. We enjoyed that. She had a horse and I had a horse.
Oh, that's neat.
So we really enjoyed that very much. Then at that time, Tawnytown had a fairground. I don't know whether that's been in any conversation. That was a big interest in Tawnytown at the time. A racetrack and the whole bit, the stadium, and many activities would go on there. That was a very important thing to Tawnytown. So we'd get up there and ride our horses around that. My dad said, "Don't you race, though." Well, one time her and I decided we'd race. So I went back home, and my dad knew right away because the horse was all lathered up that I overexerted it. So I got a bit of a lecture. Yeah, so, but that's how I picked up, I guess because I loved horses too. We had all Percherons for work horses. We didn't have a tractor way back in the first one. All Percherons, and drove the team of horses, depending on the big wagon of hay, and mowing the hay and all. I learned to do all that. That was not strange to me, working a horse and whatever needed to be done.
Yeah. What else about Tawnytown? Where did you shop, and what were the merchants like?
Well, wasn't many stores. There was one main store on the corner of Tawnytown, and I forget what that street's called, was the Reed's Market, and that's where you did most of your grocery shopping. But on a farm, you had your eggs, you had your milk, you had your pigs for butchering meat and so forth, you know. So it was a little different than city people, but we did need, you know, a few things like cereal and flour and various things.
What about clothes?
Well, there was a couple of small stores, and I can't think of them. One was called Economy Smith's or whatever. But no, they had shoes, so that's the limit. Unless you sent away in a catalog for items.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Is that where, well, now when your father needed equipment for the farm, were there merchants for that, or did you send away for that too?
You mean for the, what he needed is, well, see, back then it was an old mower that you pulled, you needed, so I guess there was a place machine shop there in Tawnytown, that, which I say is so different from today. Cause you but you didn't, he repaired many of his items. He did his own shoeing of his horses, which a lot of people can't do. He had studied medicine, so he knew a lot about the animals and what to give them if they were ill or whatever. As far as the equipment, though, I can't remember, but if a tongue broke on a wagon, you fixed it yourself. I'm sure there were items he bought, but I can't just think of anything right now. Whether there was a machine place, I'm sure it had to be, because that was all rural area then.
Right.
And farmers were popular then. Where today you don't hear too many.
Right. Well, if you were to meet someone who'd never been to Carroll County, how would you describe it to them?
Today's Carroll County, oh my. It's a beautiful place, and we love it, but when I think back as a kid, it was all farms all around. Where today you go up and down the road, you see all these developments.
Right.
Now but no, I think it's a very nice county, I really do. It's got a nice mixture for you. And I guess as far as variety and shopping and all, we have the basics here, really. Of course, now if you come from Baltimore City out, then you might say, oh, it's rural out here, and we don't have the big stores. But we have shopping malls now, which we didn't even have in our day. And we did a lot of walking back in our day to do whatever. But to describe Carroll County, it's a beautiful place, I think. It's just so much more modern than what I can remember as a kid, but that's progress, I guess.
You talked about walking. When did you get your first automobile?
I got that at the second farm when I went to my job after I graduated. And I guess I was 18 then.
Did the kids ride bikes?
Oh, yes. Although you were out in the country, there weren't pavements and all. Now, the children in town did. Oh, yeah, I had a lot of classmates. That was the thing. Yeah, the country was a little different to them than the way I was.
You probably rode your horses more.
Actually, yes. But then I didn't have much time to ride, only on Sundays, because I had a lot of chores to do.
Right.
Yeah, but
they kept you busy, didn't they?
Oh, my, yeah. We didn't have much time for, but I said we didn't know any better, you know. And as far as school, I graduated from Tawnytown, and I was very fortunate. I graduated in 53, and I got a job in 54, January, in a local bank. At that time, it was the biggest bank in Westminster and so forth.
How did banking change?
Oh, you don't even want to know. Oh, that's unreal, banking. Of course, the computers changed that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I went in there with all the manual. Everything was done manual and so forth. But, oh my, that's changed tremendous. I don't know where to start with that, but I enjoyed my work very much. I worked there from 54 to 91. Same day.
Wow, that was good.
Enjoyed it. Enjoyed meeting the people in the county and so forth. I wasn't a teller. I was more behind the scenes with general ledger and bookkeeping and all. But then you conversed over the phone if a person had a problem or whatever.
Right.
And you know a lot of people.
Right.
Very nice, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were good days.
Yeah. Was there anything else that you can think of that you'd like to share about growing up in Carroll County?
Okay, this is probably a real strange story, but because we had so much snow then, I can remember my dad a couple of times. He'd put the sleigh bells on the horse, and we had a sled, double-seater, and he'd go riding across the country because our back roads and you didn't have many vehicles. And at nighttime, the bells, you could hear them jingle jangle. It was just something.
Oh, that's
when
neat.
I see a Christmas card with the horse and sled, I think about that because most of my friends didn't even know that was all about. They didn't know that much about horses, for one thing.
Right.
They were dairy people, so they had cows and calves, But they would love that, to get on that sled, and Daddy would take us. And I guess that's left an impression with me because I don't think too many people know about riding in the sleigh. You hear it.
With the bells.
With the bells on the horse, and they sound beautiful. In fact, I have a whole stretch hanging on my wall, real preserved of the bells. Yeah, they sound beautiful, really.
Yeah.
So that's basically, my life, I guess, wasn't too exciting to some people, but that's the way it was.
Well, thank you for sharing your memories of Carroll County.
Well, you're welcome. And I said, there's only one other thing. I was very fortunate. My husband was born and raised in Carroll County all the way, and I thoroughly... I've got to show my horseshoe here. I got a wonderful husband, and he's a pure Carroll Countian.
We'll raise it up a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good memories.